Welcome to the $1 Billion Podcast, a weekly show about the entrepreneurial journey and making it big in any industry. We're your hosts, Joe White and Kane Daniel.
Welcome to the $1 Billion Podcast. Our guest today is Tony Leung. Hi, Tony.
How are you? Welcome.
Hey, Tony. Great to have you with us.
So Tony is a seasoned professional with 30 years in the finance industry. He began at TD Bank, where he had various roles, including bank manager, before transitioning into his role as a mortgage broker in 2004. Since 2006, Tony has been with Mortgage Alliance, beginning as a regional manager, overseeing a staggering 900 agents. And then 2020, he transitioned into the role of regional vice president, GTA. So welcome, Tony. I think what we'd like to hear first, maybe we'd like to kick off these podcasts with asking you about your start of your journey. So is this an industry that you've always wanted to be in, like since you were a little kid? I wanted to be a mortgage broker.
Well, first and foremost, Kane, thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys inviting me on, Joe. Thank you very much for inviting me on here. You know, that's a great question, Kane. One, as I grew up in Montreal, I was born in Ontario, I grew up in Montreal, I went to school there. I always wanted to be a hockey player, but obviously, I'll be honest with you, the skill set is not there. like every kid, you watch TV, you watch the Canadians, the Maple Leaf, you wanted to play hockey. But, I think I got to a certain level, but obviously the skill's not there. So, we have to do something that's a little bit more realistic. So this is kind of the finance path that I took. But no regrets and no complaints.
That's cool. So maybe tell us how you took your first step into the financial industry. What was that like? What prompted you to get into this specific industry?
You know what? I think I probably kind of got into it, I guess, indirectly. Once I graduated from university in Montreal Concordia, I said, you know what? I applied for a job. I got hired by TD Bank. So I started as a customer service rep, and I didn't really know exactly, what it entailed. But I said, you know what? It's a bank. It's TD Bank in Montreal. I said, you know what? Let me try it. They hired me, and my first choice was really RBC, but they called me a month later and offered me the job. I already accepted with TD. So I started really, that's how I got in, is once I got into the bank, and I liked it. I mean, it was more of a people business. I know it's finance. I love working with people. I made a lot of good friends who are still friends with me today. And that kind of set the path a little bit in the finance area. And then I eventually moved to Toronto, over here. My wife got transferred when she worked at Nortel to Ontario. And then I kind of made that transition really from TD in Montreal to Ontario. And from there, I made more friends here, just loved the industry, and kind of slowly trickled my way into moving to the mortgage side after the retail side.
That's cool. A lot of people don't realize when they think of this industry, they don't really think of it as much of as a people industry, right? Where you get to make, you find great friends. And that's one of the things about this industry I've always found, is that when you're in an industry where people have like-minded beliefs and goals,
yeah, absolutely,
it's easy to get to like them because they're similar. Their goals are similar. So it's great that you found that. And I think that's a great point to make to people who are considering this as a career, that, you make a lot of lifelong friends when you're in this industry.
Tony, I wanted to jump in because I think that's a really important point that we haven't talked a lot about that. I think a lot of people, as you both mentioned, a lot of people coming in think of this as just finance, think they're working with numbers, but I think the people part of it is forgotten both in the industry and obviously you're working with your clients as well. And I think that's why we see a diverse range of people coming into the mortgage side anyway. Sorry to I want to digress
no,
with
that.
I did want to know, regarding the bank, what was the motivation to switch into the brokering side?
Kane, when I was in Montreal, it was at TD Bank. I was a mobile mortgage specialist at TD Bank. I did it for, I think, almost 2 years. And then when my wife got transferred to Ontario, I go, well, okay, I don't know a lot of people in Ontario. I don't know. I don't really have a lot of contacts because I really grew up in Montreal. And really, that's where, your network is, a big pool of friends. I did have friends in, some friends in Ontario, but when I came over here, then I moved on. I started at the retail branch as assistant manager. Then I moved on to as a bank manager. But as it progressed over here, when I saw, what I did in TD in Montreal, I said, this is something I want to get back into with TD Bank here. And then once I came here for a couple of years, then I said, you know what, this is something I definitely want to move into. And believe it or not, I said in Ontario, we needed the mortgage agent course through REMIC. So I took it with Kevin Rawlings.
Yeah.
Kevin Rawlings, and you know what? He's the best. I really enjoyed what he did there. So I took that there, and then I had to get my mortgage course, end up leaving TD Bank, moving to broker channel. And when I did my broker course, Joe, I don't even remember, you were my instructor for a couple of classes. And I said,
okay.
you know what? Yeah, you taught it was a couple of courses you taught there when I did the broker course. That was going way back when you had like the 14 courses.
Yeah.
Three or four courses, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, you know what? This is definitely something, going back to, I guess, something more enjoy as opposed to being a bank manager. And then I just kind of moved on to the broker channel from there as an agent. And believe it or not, eventually, Joe Pinero, he was teaching a course also at REMIC, and that's how I kind of made that leap from TD Bank, bank manager, mobile specialist, into broker channel with Mortgage Alliance. Is really, I guess, Joe, you had a role, Kevin Rawlings, Joe Pinero, and end up at Mortgage Alliance.
That's fantastic, and the money's a little bit better in this industry than in banking, right?
Yeah, you know what? Money wasn't the motivating factor for me. When I came on this here, and I guess like a typical banker, you only know TD Bank, and when you have all these other options, it's kind of like I always say, why go to the dollar store where I could go to Walmart? It's like you had all these opportunities. I mean, all the different lenders, and I got to learn more about the Alt-A than the commercial. And obviously today's more relevant with the private lending.
Yeah.
It's a suite of products. So it really opened a lot of doors. You hear about it, but unless you're immersed into it and you live it, it's a different world. It's a different world. And believe it or not, I mean, I made a lot of good friends. Some are lending partners, some at work, some are agents, and we're friends outside now. So, I mean, that's where I think I value the job more, is because of the friendship. And as you get a little bit older, friendship matters. Not so much about the job. The job's got to be important, but it's the friendships you make, the friendships, and I think that's key. The longevity is really you need to have relationships.
You mentioned I think that's something that we're seeing now. I mean, we're seeing at REMIC now more people coming in from the banking side,
Absolutely,
come into the broker side and the mortgage brokering side. For those that are maybe listening and in that spot now and considering that you were in, Tony, what challenges do you think that they'll have, and what should they be considering, and what should they be looking for before making that transition?
Yeah, I think, REMIC here, being an instructor, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I can confidently tell you, hearing from Simba Mortgage Professional, and I have some colleagues there, and they teach there, and I hear their program. I think the one at REMIC here, number one, it's very, very detailed. It's more live into exactly what's happening, and the transition is a little bit easier. Because obviously we're not trying to cut corners with the content, but it's very smooth. I got a lot of great feedback, from the private course, especially the broker course. The feedback is, that makes a lot of sense. And I think over here, the program, it works well. So highly take it through REMIC. Okay. Not because all three of us are with REMIC, but if you do a comparison, there's a reason why 85, 90% go through REMIC. If you're number one in one category, you got to be doing something right. So get a real good insight through REMIC, number one. Two, align yourself with an organization that meets your needs today, in the mid-future, and definitely long-term. So I know everybody says the things like, you have to have training, you have to have support. Saying it and actually implementing it, and actually they have to have the structure. And you got to align yourself so this way you don't have to kind of jump around. It's kind of like buying a house. If you can afford a house in a nice neighborhood, maybe a little bit smaller, but if it's already a nice neighborhood with a good school, the shopping, the transit, and it has maybe a low crime rate, real community oriented, if you really want to build a family, you don't need to move again. Maybe you're going to switch it in the same neighborhood for a bigger house, but try to get into that area there. And the most important thing is mindset. It's mindset. Have an open attitude. You only know what you know. And if you come into an organization, the mindset is key. So anybody coming from a bank, a personal banker, financial advisor, or a mortgage specialist, you only know that product. Have a good attitude, be open to learn. And I think the rest will take care of itself if you have the right attitude.
That's fantastic advice. Fantastic advice. When you were talking about, your second point of looking at a brokerage that's good for you now, mid-career, and the one that you want to finish up with, what are some of the things that people that are working at the bank right now, or anybody from any industry who's looking to get into this industry or considering it, what do you think they should be looking for when they're interviewing with a brokerage? What could tell someone, I don't know if there's an answer to this, but what could tell somebody that, hey, this brokerage is gonna be the right one for me at the beginning, middle, and end of my career?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe, because right now a lot of people ask that. I think the first thing over here is always never make it about compensation. There's always going to be somebody, if you're coming in here, I want to make the most money, I want the highest split. I think that you have to be competitive. You don't have to have the highest compensation, but I think it has to meet your needs. Anybody coming in over here, you need guidance. When I say guidance over here is you need a mentor. You need a mentor. There's so many lenders here. I'll be honest, I can't even name all the lenders, let alone all the products. I only know a handful, but there's so many lenders coming in. There's so many alt lenders, and it's kind of like navigating a little bit. So when you join a brokerage over here, make sure they're kind of like a map. Like I want to go from A to Z. The agent coming in, they're driving the car, but we're just giving them a bit of guidance to make sure they stay on track. Maybe you come in over here, you want to learn the products. We'll help you facilitate that, like to make sure, or find an organization that provides the training. This is how you do a private. This if you're interested in maybe opening a brokerage. Here's this. We offer, number one, make sure they offer it. Make sure they offer it, and make sure that what they offer, you can never outgrow the organization you're joining. Because if they're coming from a bank, end of the day, let's not be mistaken, or an insurance company, it's an insurance company. The customer belongs to them. You're never going to be an owner. You're not going to own a piece of RBC or TD Bank or maybe Manulife. You work for them. The customers belong to them. But if you want to have an entrepreneurial spirit and you want to really grow, regardless of what size, how big you want to be, you got to make sure that they can, the aspiration, they can have the tools and the model to fit that. And don't forget, when you work for a bank, and I speak as a, former banker here, the customers belong to the bank, unfortunately here, end of the day. And you know what? They're loyal to the shareholders, not so much the individuals. They'll treat you great, but to a certain point, you might have outgrown the bank, and you need to go somewhere where you can align, where growth is open and you want to be as big as you can be. So we have no limit on the dream. So find the right organization. It could be a small brokerage in the beginning, maybe a mid-size. It doesn't have to be the super brokers, because like I said, there's pros and cons in every one, right? But make sure, if you're ready, you have a big dream and you outgrown the bank, find an organization that has the opportunity and the models.
I think part of what we found is, it's hard to say any one specific brokerage is going to be the best for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It becomes an individual decision, almost like choosing a partner. Like this is, has to be a culture fit, and all the other stuff you talked about matters as well. There are a couple things that we find that are across the board. And I think you hit on the one being mentorship. We're finding that mentorship and training is, people from any industry, any walk of life, look at that, want it. From your perspective, Tony, what does good mentorship look like? Just to give a feel to the listeners, like what does it mean when you say mentorship in this industry?
Yeah, it's somebody over here who has experience in the business, who can provide a bit of guidance. Something like end of the day, we'll park the conversation of the compensation. If you have a customer, do they fit maybe the A side prime or B subprime, or maybe they fit C, which is the private area. Someone to navigate it quickly to get them to that spot. It's just like, it's kind of like, the story I always tell is like, if you walk into a doctor and, and you say, I'm not feeling well, the doctor's not going to write you a prescription and, just write your prescription. Because what they're going to say is, tell me the symptoms. what medication you on? Tell me your family history. When did it start? Is there anything else I need to know? They give you all the information, and then they write the prescription. You know, if you're not feeling well, now you can fill this prescription. Perfect. One time. It's that guidance, that confidence. And really, end of the day, what they're managing is not so much the file, because there's a lot of smart people out there. We can put them with this bank or this lender, what have you. It's the mindset, how to approach it with the mindset and how to present it to your customer. Because the conversation, you know, always from the client perspective is, it's always going to be about rate. I want the lowest rate. You know, sometimes, you know, everybody wants the lowest rate, but they might not fit there. Is how are you going to, you know, mitigate that conversation? By the way, Mrs. So-and-so, we're going to have to go to an alt A lender. It's a little bit expensive. Give me your circumstance and help them when we give it. What's the solution? Maybe a year from now, we can help you move you back to this. And this is the plan. Give them that confidence. I think that's the key with the mentorship here, because there's a lot of smart people who can get deals done. It's managing the conversation, the relationship.
Yeah, doing that. Yeah, having somebody who can give you the confidence. We spoke to someone in the who manages a large team in the life insurance side, and he was saying that, you know, one of the things that he found over time as he mentors his team is that just giving them that pat on the back. They know the technical stuff, but give them the pat on the back. Tell them, you know what, it's good. It's all good. This happens with everybody, ups and downs, but just keep going. Give them the confidence to keep going. And that's that, I think, you know, I remember a time when early on in my career, I was having a horrible week. It was like every client that I saw gave me a big fat no. And I remember driving home on Friday and called my mentor and said, you know what, I'm really beginning to wonder if I just totally suck at this. I'm horrible. And he said, no, you sucked this week. You had a horrible week. You know, fresh week next week. Don't worry. This happens. It happens to everybody. That was really an important point in my life. And I think, you know, those little points that happen where somebody can put you on the right path, or you just go off the rails. I mean, my career could have went off the rails at that very easily. I could have made a rash decision that, you know, I'm done with this. But that's a really good point that you make up about, you know, a mentor being able to give you that confidence. That's so important.
Joe, I think that's the key, because most of the time, you know, the individuals, they already know the answer. They just need that reassurance.
Right.
That reassurance and maybe a bit of guidance. And I think you're bang on here. Sometimes, you know, when I was a mortgage specialist and it seems really quiet, I used to pick up the phone, call a couple of my friends. If I'm quiet, are you guys? And I hear the same thing. Oh, it's the seasonal, it's business. It gives you that reassurance. And sometimes a real good mentor is one. Some people need a kind word. Some need a pat in the back, and sometimes you need a kick in the ass. And sometimes, you know, you need that boost, and they got to be the person's got to be able to deliver all three in the right manner that suits their personality, their character. Because here, this is the only way to grow here. Because, you know, business is not going to be dropping every single day, but it's the mindset. Really, because at the end of the day, if you're working on the broker channel, you're working on commission, and sometimes I always say you got fixed expenses, rent, mortgage payment, car payments, food, you know, child activities, and income goes up and down. You got to manage that cycle. Because honestly, I kind of lived through it when I came here to TD Bank as a mobile specialist. I said on broker channel when I left, wow, I said, I don't really know a lot of realtors. I don't really know a lot of people. All my contacts were in Montreal, but I'm not doing mortgages in Montreal. And you kind of almost had to go back to your roots. But honestly, it probably took me about 2 quarters, 6 months. But boy, when it got going, it was, you know, I'm finally back. But I needed that guidance. And one thing I did over here, I wasn't planning to take the broker course. I just did it because, you know, I told myself, I got to get out of the house. I go to Seneca. I mean, you were a teacher for a couple of courses. Kevin was, you know, it kept me in the mindset, because when I went to that room in the class at Seneca, you know, you're talking about law, you know, Kevin's talking about, you know, appraisals. It just kept me in the mindset. And then when I look around and I see 30, 40, 50, some classes that you taught, like, you know, 50 people, they all want to learn for different stages of their career. It kept me in the right frame of mind. So I was always, what would I like to say, in that zone, because I look forward to it. I get to go to class twice a week or 3 times a week. And you know what? It's the mindset that you stay. It helps you get over the hump, as opposed to, you know, what am I going to do? I kept on learning, and I think that's key. Mindset, mentorship, and align yourself with an organization, and you're going to make friends. Human nature. When I went to class, I made a lot of good friends.
Yeah.
So I think that's key. So it helps.
You know what? Yeah, those are fantastic points, and it's like immersing yourself, right? You surround yourself with other people that are like-minded and that have that same goal, and you're going to learn from some of them from almost like osmosis, right? It's just going to come into you, and yeah, it's a great point about being there. Like I always used to wonder when I was younger, like why do so many people golf in this industry? Like in the insurance, what is it about golfing? I'm a horrible golfer. I don't want to go out there and embarrass myself, but it's a lot about the camaraderie and just getting out and being at an event and having natural conversations that come up, and you're all on the same page. So you're talking about the same topics. So it's a wonderful way to keep yourself engaged and stay current. And man, it's just wonderful. A lot of wonderful people in this industry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we also find that, and this is one of the reasons why we created Agora, which is our community app, social app for this industry, because there's so many people that want to share their experiences, want to share what they've done, debate ideas, and importantly, and this is something I don't think we talk about enough, is where we didn't find the success and where maybe like we want to share our failures, because there's a lot to be learned from that as well. Which is why I was asking a little bit about what the challenges might be for someone coming specifically. I mean, you came from the banking industry. We see a lot of that, as I mentioned. One of the things that we hear a lot from those bankers is their reluctance to leave was because of the brand at the bank. And they felt that maybe coming into the broker side that they would lose out on clients not having that bank brand behind them. Was that something that you thought about at that time? And did that, I mean, obviously you did well in the brokering side, so it wasn't a huge thing. But I'm wondering if that's something you felt or you've seen in others.
You know, Kane, that is the magic question. It's the mindset, because if you work for an organization, doesn't matter which company, insurance or RBC, Scotia, BMO, TD, you grew up there since school from every level, and they do a very good job. I have to say that banks do a fantastic job of your identity almost becomes associated where you're working, and they do a real good job of that, and that's all you know. So I think sometimes over here, that's the key. You have to have a leap of faith. I always tell people, if they're going to leave and then join maybe an organization and leave a bank or an insurance company, come to the broker channel and insurance side, number one, you can be self-employed, have the right attitude, speak to some of the people, right? Take a course at Remick just to get the course, and you're going to see a lot of people there just to understand a little bit more. It's almost like fact-finding, getting information before you make that final commitment. But end of the day, it's always going to be mindset, and you're going to have to take a leap of faith. So always do your homework. And the reason that you always have to, and the key point always that I speak to people is the fact that they're inquiring. They're probably at a point in their career where there's got to be a little bit more than what I'm doing. There's got to be a little bit more. Of course, there's the financial component, but maybe I have outgrown them, or I come to a point where I need a little bit more to expand my business. And I think when they're almost at that there, but it's just information, talk to the people. I mean, we always look at, I always tell my kids that we look at Apple when they come up with, the Macintosh computer, look how they evolved. They're always from what? Then you got the iPod, then you got, Apple TV, then you got the AirPods. I mean, this goes more and more, and you know what? They kind of build that ecosystem, but it gets bigger and bigger. So if they're at a point and they're curious, reach out to a few people in the industry, get information, and ask themselves the question, why am I inquiring? Because they're probably at that point where I think I need a little bit more entrepreneurial, or I'll outgrown the bank or the insurance company, and I'm ready for the next step. But you're always going to be scared. It's human nature. If you're not scared or have a little bit of reservation, then you're probably not going to do as well, because that fear gives you a bit of guidance also. So, I mean, but that's the best piece of advice. Ask yourself, why am I inquiring about looking? Is there more?
So when you talk about that, Tony, when you talk about looking for something more, when you made the switch, and when colleagues and agents and brokers that you supervise and that you mentor, when they made the switch, how did that impact their daily life? Like, that there's that work-life balance concept that, whether it's doable or not, in certain industries is questionable. But like you go to work from 9 to 5, you're at a location. It's hard to have that work-life balance during the day. But what do you find is the work-life balance like for individuals who come over into this industry?
That's the magic part over here, is that you're right. You don't have a specific time. You open your agenda, it's blank. I mean, I lived through it. Wake up, I don't have to go to the branch. I don't have to work at this time, or I finish at this time. End of the day over here, best piece of advice is, number one, you got to be systematic. You got to have a routine. You got to write down what you want to do. And I said, you got to be very disciplined, because time, you can waste a lot of time. You can start your day at 2:00 in the afternoon, or basically if you're self-employed, you could be sleeping at home watching Netflix or whatever you want to do. Wake up the same time every day. If you have a routine, go to the gym. If you have another routine, write out, like, you want to meet with 2 or 3 realtors or prospects or insurance, clients, write it down. Get yourself out of the house. I'm not saying every single day, but make sure you have it mapped out. Be organized, because at the end of the day, time, everybody's got, 24 hours in a day, and it's what we do with that opportunity over here. So start early, have it mapped out, be disciplined. Because at the end of the day over here, you got to be disciplined. And if you look at the business cycle, it doesn't matter what business you're in, there's the peak, there's the valley over here. When it's really quiet, that's where you really got to start working. That's where you got to work. When it's really busy, when I talk to some of my agents, some of them do insurance also, most of them do mortgages, some do dual. When they're really, really busy, I always call them order takers. And they tell me, Tony, why do you call me an order taker? Because what I say? You're not really working now. I am. Look how busy I am. I'm canceling lunch with you. You're coming over. I told you I need to reschedule. When it's the top part where it's really busy, they're very, very busy. People are calling them. Applications are coming in. Phones ringing off the hook. I say, you're not really working. You're processing right now. But when it's really quiet, and when I come see them a couple months ago, beginning of the year, January, February, it's quiet. What were they doing? They were prospecting. They were going out meeting customers. They're sending newsletters. They're going to events. That's when they're really working. And you see the payoff is really what they've done in the last quarter that really sets them up for what they're doing going on in when they're really busy. So you got to build a train track. If you build a train track, and the example I love to say uses this here. You look at McDonald's. First thing you think of McDonald's, when I grew up as a kid, they sell hamburgers. I said, they don't sell hamburgers. They sell breakfast. They sell lunch. I go to my mailbox. I see a coupon, for $12.99, 2 burgers, 2 drinks, 2 fries. I tell my wife it's date night again. Now they're doing these like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you know what? Right now, for $1, I could buy an ice cream cone or I get a coffee. Everything in between. They're firing on all 3 cylinders. So I said, this is what we got to do over here. You got to be good at building that train track. You got to be good at on the phone. You got to be physically going out to meet people physically. And 3, you got to make contacts, because, it's like a train. Once you fire on all 3 cylinders, those files and contacts will come in. It's really when it's quiet. And when, that's when you're really working so much as, when it's super busy, you're just an order taker. So that's my best piece of advice. Be organized, set the agenda, and don't waste time. And the last example we use is, look at the sports athlete. I love using this example here. Any season, basketball, football, hockey, it's about 4 or 5 months. Depends how far they go into the playoffs. What do you think the athletes are doing in between? They're dieting, they're training, they're doing yoga. I mean, they're exercising. They're doing massage therapy. And when the season comes, bang on, they're ready to go. It's not like they're getting in shape. They never need to get in shape, because they never fall out of shape. Because you look at the season, 5-6 months, again, depending the sport. What are they doing for those other 5-6 months? They're staying in shape. They're honing their skill. They're working. But when the season starts, they're ready to go. So it's the same thing with the life cycle here. That's the best piece of advice. Be organized. Don't waste time, because time is important.
Yeah, I think this really, you said so much there, but I love that. It is discipline. It's about, what you're doing when no one's looking, because it is about you. I think those things haven't changed over time and probably never will. I'm curious about when you were brokering, and this is going back 2004, 2006, you were brokering at that time, right?
Yes.
What have you seen, like, what has changed from that time to now, like 20 years later, for those brokers coming in that you're seeing? What has changed in with the market, with their activity that they're doing, or has it changed at all? And maybe do you think it'll change now going forward? Like, what is the role progressed for the mortgage agents? Just looking at it at a high level for those maybe coming in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you go we have more lenders than ever right now. We have more lenders than ever from from the monolines, the alt A's, and there's a lot of privates. So we have much more options than it was like 20 years ago. So I mean right now here's like over 100 lenders. I mean, in Ontario, we deal with it. There's so many. I can't even name them. So we have a lot of lenders right now. And the second thing over here, you have to embrace change. And when I say change over here is, I'm going back almost 20 years. Internet was big then, but now you look at some of the things right now is like, like we're doing today, the podcast is a different, it's a different venue to reach people. Then you got YouTube, you got all these other things. Technology has to be a role what it is today because it is what it is. You got to play in all the different spaces. Let it be Facebook, let it be Instagram, what have you. Technology is here. More people are educated right now. They know a lot. I mean, they can find out what the lowest rate is. They'll do the research. They can go to a lender monoline, find out what the details are. So I think over here, a lot of lenders change, a lot of technology, but one thing hasn't changed. We're in the people business. We're in the people business. We're in the people business. They need guidance. Anybody buying a property or taking a life insurance, they're looking for somebody to, help them assess what's the best option. Okay. I don't think AI can do it at this point. No, but they want the human touch. What's the best life insurance policy? What's the best mortgage for me? And Tony, if you tell me I'm supposed to come into this rate, here's the rationale behind it. They need that guidance over here. So at the end of the day, we're in the people business. You got to be a good communicator. You got to have reach. And so I'll say one thing, it's a little bit easier now because especially with Instagram and technology, the reach is far greater. But end of the day, pick up the phone. You'll be shocked because end of the day, we're in the people business. So you got to stay in touch. Don't use technology, but keep in mind we're in the people business.
Yeah, great points. And that kind of dovetails into AI and its impact on the industry and where it's going. One of the things that I always think about is what makes those interpersonal connections different than the connection that you might have with like an AI avatar. And aside from, we've gotten really used to using Zoom and digital conversations. Aside from that, the physical contact or the physical proximity, aside from that, I think there's the storytelling. Human beings are very story based. We love stories. We love talking to each other. One of the reasons why we do this is because we love stories. And when you can relate with somebody else from that personal perspective, I think that really solidifies your relationship with them. And, a piece of technology, at least, today, can't do that and can't replicate a backstory and a life that is relatable. And that's what I think is necessary. So when you talk about having good communication skills, I think, people need to be comfortable with sharing who they are with their clients. So that makes that connection. One last thing before I ask my next question. I took a negotiation course, and they were saying that in a test group, they had two groups. One group was you go in and you start negotiating right away. The other group was you go in and you cannot start negotiating during the first 10 minutes. In the first 10 minutes, you have to talk, but it can't be about the negotiation. It has to be about yourself. You can talk about anything you want to, but it just can't be the negotiation. The study found that those that used that 10 minutes and created some type of connection had a far greater success rate in the negotiations than the other group. So how do you find that when you're talking to your agents and you manage or you mentor a great group of brokers? How does that come up? Do you have any advice on how they can break the ice with their clients and make that connection?
I always say number one, depends on the personality. I mean, some people over here are naturally, some are introvert, extroverts. Whatever your personality is, number one, you gotta use it so you're comfortable. So, I mean, right now here, it's gotten so impersonal. One, technology has far great reach. And I always give you one example. When you're looking for a mortgage, hypothetically here, there's only one, let's say there's only one TD Bank. Why is it that somebody can draw on so many customers to go to TD Bank and or a BMO or a Scotia, MCAP, what have you? And then you have another group over here offering the same product, the same rate. Pretty much there's only one TD Bank, one BMO, one Scotia, but yet they're not as good as drawing that many customers. And if you look at the two here, the product is the same. The reach is available to everybody. They're using internet. They're using social media. It's the little things they do. Sometimes over here, they send an email. They'll pick up the phone. They'll meet them at events. It's that personal touch that you just bang on right there, Joe, what you said. However you have that reach, you get to meet somebody. And I think that connection, it makes a big difference. So as long as we keep it personable, and however sense, I mean, depends proximity, depends where you live also. I got to be aware of that. But if you have a chance to meet with them in person, it makes the biggest difference. It makes the biggest difference. And I can honestly tell you, taking a course at Seneca, when you were teaching it, when Kevin was teaching it, the content, you could have done it online today. But the fact that, I get to know you a little bit better, it's more personal. You see the person, and I'll be honest with you, that's one of the reasons over here I wanted to teach at Seneca, because you and Kevin. I mean, because I met you guys, and then you taught the course. I liked you and what you guys did, and it was really one of the factors. And I think that's the part. It's not always as easy because of the proximity, but join organizations, meet the people, meet them in person as opposed to sending something online. I think it makes a big difference.
We talk a lot about this, about personalization, and that is how you as a small entrepreneur or a small company can compete with much bigger companies that are, in this case, almost faceless, right? When you start talking about banks versus individual agents and
Absolutely.
brokers, things like creating content to connect personally with people online on social media, like you talked about. So we talk a lot about that, and that's one way to sort of compete and sort of create your own market. Like, what do you think the challenges are right now in the industry in regards to agents, individual agents and brokers? What are you seeing as their challenge now, and what's the advice for them? How are they overcoming those?
Yeah, the good question here. I mean, sometimes it's market driven a little bit. Homes are expensive in Ontario. I mean, or more expensive than most part of the country. It's not typical, because if you look at the average home price, in Ontario, average 1.2, 1.3 million. Right away, you see these insured programs doesn't really apply anymore. It's over $1 million. People got to put down at least 20%. I mean, 1.2 million, that's $240,000. And you look at that $240,000, even though you have the down payment with the land transfer tax, you probably need close to $300,000 just to close on that average transaction for a home, a conventional home. But then ideally, then your mortgage is close to $1 million. I mean, for two people or a partner or two people, you probably need about $275,000 to clear just to qualify. So it's not your typical, scenario. Because like I said, when I go with my wife downtown, we walk around. I'm not sure if everybody's making $275,000 as a couple and have $300,000 to close on a typical detached home or a semi. Depends where. So you have to explore other options. Learn about the Alt-A lending. There's an option with the Alt-A lending. You're going to have to expand your bandwidth of knowledge. You're going to have to maybe even explore the privates. Everybody wants the A rates, but you have to expand the privates. Have an open mind to it. And at the end of the day, we can't make that circle fit into that square. Everybody wants the lowest rate, but circumstance, be good in communicating with the clients. Mr. So-and-so, the reason why we can't go here is because of, your circumstances here, and here's the rationale, and this is why we're going to go here. This is the best option for you today, but maybe credit or what have you. We have a plan even after it closes for 1 year or whatever the term is. This is how we're going to get you back into a better position. So I think number one, be open-minded. Don't be afraid to have those tough conversations. Be a little bit, expand your bandwidth of the products you offer, because at the end of the day, especially in Ontario with the high interest rates today, It's not easy putting somebody into a home today. And sometimes, the conversation is maybe they shouldn't. I know we want to sell mortgages. We want to sell life insurance. Today, you should stay as a renter based on your situation, improve your credit, or save a little bit more down payment. Don't be afraid to say that, because if you give them the right advice and you're honest with them, I'm going to tell you, they're going to come back to you and they're going to refer their friends. It's not today. You're just basically building your pipeline for the future. Always do what's best for the customer, but never be afraid to have that tough conversation.
And that's where they need to have that confidence to be able to have that conversation, right?
Exactly.
They need to be confident in their advice and plan for those meetings. They need to walk into those meetings and really have all the facts and understand why they're giving the advice. Where, it's something that we talk about. There's new continuing education coming into play where there's suitability requirements and explaining the suitability. That's something that in our industry, I think we've always done so much better than banks when it comes to explaining the transaction and the rationale behind it. Because we have access to so many different lenders, when you're selling a one bank product, you're really, like you say, you could be pushing square peg into a round hole or a round whatever, however that goes. And it could be difficult, right? What do you think for a borrower should be high on their list of being important as suitable for that borrower? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean exactly, Joe. Because one, make sure they're comfortable with the payment. They have to be able to manage their payment. I think over here, a lot of people here, in Ontario is typical, maybe in BC the same. They buy too much house. A lot of their income, even though they qualify, a big portion of their income cash flow each month is going towards sustaining the house. Because I think end of the day over here is one, make sure their cash flow is feasible. Because like I said, end of the day, if a lot of your money is going towards the house and you're maintaining the house, you might have to have the conversation, Mr. So-and-so, even though you qualify for it, you qualify on paper, you qualify, no problem. But at the end of the day, you got to be comfortable. You got to buy food, you got childcare expenses, you got to have entertainment, you want to maybe take a trip. Don't buy the biggest house you can afford. Buy something to keep the cash flow each month, because there's going to be different stress factors in life. I mean, life is stressful. It's great. It's stressful. It's going to be ups and downs, but make sure the cash flow is manageable. And then the cash flow's got to be manageable. And sometimes for the customer, they could buy this house, a little bit, this big house. Maybe you should just buy a little bit smaller, free up that $500 or $600 a month. It'll make the biggest difference. So again, because when you're under stress, making payments for a property over here, it's going to affect your mental state. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your family. And I'm not sure if you can really enjoy that property you're in when you're always thinking, got to make this payment. So make sure the cash flow is reasonable. So, and when you talk about suitability, let's find something, extend amortization, find something that the cash flow to make sure it's.
I think that's really very, very solid advice, obviously. I'm wondering now from the agent, you mentioned stress and quality of life. Now, what about from the agent or broker's perspective? So as an entrepreneur coming into this industry, how do those individuals, or what are you seeing and Joe touched on it earlier, for that sort of work-life blend, let's call it. What is the thought there? What is the strategy now? And how did you handle that, especially early on when you were brokering and probably, working well into the evenings, some nights, I'm sure, in the weekends? How do you create a good balance or a good blend with that?
Like, did you have kids at the time?
No, I mean, I can tell you right now, I got 5 kids now.
Yeah.
I got 5 kids. When I first started over here, no,
so you found the time. You found the time to have those kids.
Yeah, I mean, when you first start, sometimes it's tough. I mean, the market's changed a little bit. It's important. Life balance is important because, if you're always working, you're not going to have enough time for your social life, your family life, your personal life. And I think that's going to take a toll. Life balance is important because it's a mental state now. There's so much pressures, especially today on the young kids, social media, finances, things are expensive right now. So always find time for yourself. So to answer your question, Kane, over here, I got 2 pieces of advice. You got to have the right mindset. Read a book. Make sure you're mentally sharp. Number 1. However that is, you listening to this podcast, taking a course. Keep your mind sharp. Always learn. Number 1. So you have to have the right mindset. Number 2, join a gym. Physically join an organization. You got to take care of your body over here, because mindset and your body, this is like a machine. You got to be well oiled, and because you do a lot of things right now. So you got to be, I recommend, I'm not saying everybody's got to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Go for walks, join a gym, play soccer, swim, whatever fits your personality. I think once you have those two things, and both of these things over here, especially the latter one is, you're talking about doing sports, join an organization to stay fit. It gets you out of the house. And when it gets you out of the house, you're going to meet people. You're almost going to be networking with, depending at the gym, at the church, you're walking, jogging, or whatever you're doing, swimming, tennis club, you're going to be meeting people. So think of it that way. It's almost like you're building your network indirectly while you're taking care of your body. And I say two things. When I talk about mindset, I always recommend taking a course. Yeah, read at nighttime, take podcasts, try to take a course outside where you actually go. You're going to see like-minded people. It keeps you in that same realm. Because I go back to the sports athletes. When the off season, like for hockey or basketball, they're practicing not by themselves. It could be some people from their team. It could be other players from other teams, or they're joining, organizations, in between that, to keep themselves in shape. And I think this is the key. You got to get out. It could be a lonely business only you choose to be. So mindset, and make sure you do something to take care of your body from for health wise.
So when you talk about the sports and kids and having some balance there, do you think that mortgage brokers and agents, like entrepreneurs, have the ability to prioritize, for example, family event? They can attend more of those and be involved in more of those family moments than somebody who is, like a salaried employee working 9 to 5. So do you find that the people that you manage, yourself included, have been able to enhance their life by spending more time with their family and being more flexible?
Absolutely. Joel, this is one of the benefits here is be disciplined, of course, but my best piece of advice is for any family events, or maybe you're taking care of, your parents, or you're helping out somebody at organizations, or you got to be at your child's graduation, what have you. This job enables you to take that time, for 1 or 2 hours, however long it be, you can manage around it. And I think that's critical, because at the end of the day over here, we work, everybody works, and sometimes you're so immersed and you forget what's really important. Because at the end of the day over here, these are moments that you can't really capture, or these memories cannot be replicated, because it's usually one-time graduation, or you might have to help somebody, a family member bring to a doctor's appointment. I think these things are really important in life. A job in the insurance or in the mortgage brokering side, it enables you to prioritize what needs to be done and still work as you see fit to make sure you get your work done. And absolutely, I think you're bang on. This gives you the best, I guess, the best of both worlds, as opposed to a 9 to 5 job where you're always, at one location.
And just to add to that, Joe and I were actually talking about this yesterday. We're part of an executive group of entrepreneurs that we would go and meet once a month or a couple times a month. And what we found is these are business leaders as well across many different industries, but they always show up like for a full day. Incredibly busy people that make it a point to be there because this is their tribe, so to speak, right? So I think there's a real importance, and there's a lot of value being placed on that in finding your tribe, finding your people, having the same mentality. So yeah, just really wanted to reiterate that this industry, and I think most industries where you're an entrepreneur, give that opportunity. Not that you're not going to be working hard, maybe spending more hours, especially in the beginning, actually, but you do have the freedom, as Joe mentioned, to pick and choose. If I can just add one more thing to that we were talking to a broker a few months ago, and it just stuck with me that we asked, like, what do you love about this industry? And he said, I've never missed my child's baseball game. I haven't missed one. And it was it really stuck with me that he's obviously a very hardworking guy, leads his own business, but that's the value that he got out of it.
Absolutely. And I think that's key, because at the end of the day over here, if you can, you'll be a better person. Your mental state, you're there for your family, you're working. And I think the balance, you just have to find the right balance between the two, but you know what's important. And I think a career in insurance or in mortgages, it gives you the opportunity to have both. So I think that's a key benefit for sure. Absolutely.
Personally, and then for the business, where do you see the opportunity for growth?
For me personally, on the personal side, I can tell you honestly, I'm having a great time with Remick. I love teaching the private course. I mean, any course. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Okay, you know what? End of the day, it's an enthusiasm. And you know what? In every course, okay, personally, you always learn something from the agents. It's not they're listening. I can teach them. I'm always learning something about something that I don't know. So I love to add value there. I'm having a great time, and I think the courses are getting better and better. So I say definitely, I recommend people taking it. You know, the courses here, you're always learning, keeps you in the mindset. So I think that's fantastic. Where the business is going right now, I think it's a fantastic business still. I think it could be better, but I think the point over here is with so much AI and technology, I'm a little bit concerned that you lose the personal touch a little bit because we're relying so much on it, especially the younger generation. A lot of people want to talk through text, through social media, and we might get a little bit more impersonal. But if you look at all the real successful people, they do a combination of both. They might have a luncheon, they might have a picnic, just to bring everybody together. These small things are going to make a big difference because you don't want to, Zoom calls are good, but you need to bring the people together, however you want to do it. So I think the industry is great, a little bit more impersonal. We just got to find the right balance. I think that will really make real difference down the road. And about the business over here, I think with all the broker channel and insurances, we're not here competing brokerage to brokerage. Our competition is the bank. So, and I think one thing the bank's done a bit better than what on the broker channel is all the executives or CEOs of the big banks, they speak to each other. And I think they're more collaborative than what we see in the broker channel right now. So you got so many super brokers here. I want to be number one. I want to be the biggest. And sometimes over here, if you got them in the same room, I think here, it'll be a life-changing moment for the broker channel. If you got all the super brokers with all the CEOs, we have the same end goal. We want to do well. We're competitors, but I think we need to be more collaborative. It's something we can learn from what's happening with the banks right now.
Yeah, great point. That definitely is the case because you're right. I agree that the banks are our major competition, and one of the things they've done a good job at is turning that product into a rate-driven product that most consumers now look at as, well, the only difference is rate. So why does it matter which institution I go to? It's all about the rate. I'm only going to go to a broker if maybe I am getting I'm in a tough situation. They don't really understand the value of dealing with a mortgage broker. And on the life side, they don't understand the value of dealing with a life agent who can really explain and do that suitability, right? And find out, because maybe TD Canada Trust is the best option for somebody today, but not 3 years down the road. And yeah, I think that's a good point about us, competing with the banks. It has to be made more than just about the interest rate. And the banks have controlled that narrative for so many years, right? And it's just, you watch a commercial on TV, they're just talking about rates. It's just rates. And yeah, it's really unfortunate, but I think you're right. It coalesced a bit more as an industry and started getting out some cohesive messaging that it's not about rate is important, but it's not just about the rate. And I guess that's why we as individuals, when we're talking to our clients, have to impress that upon them, right? That it's more about all the ancillary items within the product that are important as well. So how do you think that somebody should promote themselves, maybe through LinkedIn or Instagram? Like, what do you think is an important message to get out to consumers as opposed to just the rate message?
Joe, I think you asked the magic question here. One, options choice, counsel, convenience. We got to give them all the options. And I think that's key here is giving them many options. And then I go back to my story here. If I tell my wife, why would we want to go shop at the dollar store? They have all the items here. I might as well go to Walmart. I can go to McDonald's. I can buy wine. I can do my dry cleaning. I can use the washroom. I can buy groceries, get an oil change, buy barbecue sets. All these things over here. And I think over here is one, the consumer mind share is still more, I guess I don't want to use the word narrow-minded, but the trust right now is still with the banks in general. And obviously with the broker channel, we need to be a little bit, I like what's going on right now. I know FISRA is tough with the regulation right now. We're doing a lot of the private courses, the broker course. You learn a lot to basically mitigate any concerns with fraud or anything of that nature in consumer mind share. And that's the only way to grow as an organization, but you need a lot of people coming together. But getting back to your point over here, on the broker channel here, we have many, many options. You only know what you know, and your bank, end of the day, is only to promote their product. So I always say keep it open here, be open, let them know what's available there. Because sometimes if you deal with TD Bank and then all of a sudden you say, oh, National Bank or Scotia Bank has a 1% cash back with the same rate. The customer's not going to know that because they're a customer of TD only. So we want to make an informed decision, always do what's best for the customer.
Tony, we're just about to, I think, get to an hour here. I'm wondering if there's any sort of final thoughts or advice you want to leave our listeners with, especially those that are maybe considering making a big switch and becoming an entrepreneur in really any industry.
The best piece of advice, number one, make sure you're honest with yourself. You got to know yourself and do some research. Okay. And when you do come on, like if you do make a transition to insurance or the broker channel, be honest with yourself. Why am I asking myself, like if you're a banker or insurance person with an organization, why you ask yourself the first question, why am I inquiring? Have you outgrown the organization? Are you looking for more? Align yourself with the right organization that meets your needs today, the short term and the long term. Get to know some of the people in the industry. Definitely take the course through REMIC because it's well laid out. Not because all of us are REMIC, because I can confidently tell you it's well laid out. It's informative and we can give them direction, exactly where to go and give them a bit of direction. So know yourself first, find information, sign up for the course. And from there, I think it's going to be self-explanatory. And one piece of advice, there's nobody that I met, I can confidently tell you, that came on the insurance side or the mortgage side, and they came from an institution or insurance company working 9 to 5. I always hear the one last line. I should have done this a long time ago. Okay, so be honest with yourself, and I wish them best of luck.
Fantastic, Tony. That sounded like a good place to wrap on. But I have one more question for you, and that is, what do you think is great about working at your organization for a new broker or new agent? I mean, I'm not asking you to compare to other brokerages, but if somebody was coming to you and said, you know what, why should I consider joining your team? What would you have to tell them?
Great question. Number one, I look at it like a car. If you're buying a car, suppose say you want to buy a nice luxury car. You got a $70,000 BMW, an Audi, a Lexus, and an Infiniti. What's the difference between these 4 cars? They're all $70,000. They all have pros and cons. You know what the deciding factor is going to be? Whoever that salesperson is or representing that brand, you got to make sure you're comfortable. Okay, because they're all good cars. I mean, there's parity there's parity right now in all the brokerages. Find out about the culture. What do they do for the people? Do they put the people first? What do they have? And for us over here, I'll promote a little bit here since you gave me the opportunity here. We have team meetings by Zoom. We bring people together in office. We have Christmas parties. We have golf tournaments. We have kickoffs where we bring people together. We have, team meetings where we bring people together. So I think that's key because at the end of the day, what's the purpose? We could do it on Zoom. I want them to expand. I want them to make friends. And that's the culture. So make sure you're aligned with with an organization where bringing people together. And the mantra here is we're in the people business. The product's the product. We want to bring people together.
Yeah, that's important, and I can see why you're so successful. You are a people person, and I can see why your team is so successful because you have that culture of interpersonal interactions. Like when you were just saying that about the Christmas party, I was thinking, that sounds like such a nice, comfortable, warm, friendly place to work. And I think that's fantastic to have a culture like that, and people should look for it. That's a good place to work.
Absolutely. Joe, you when we had like the meeting with all the instructors, professors at Remic, and then of course, you treated us to all some drinks downstairs. It's nice to, I know that I talk to them once in a while, but just to chat with them, get to know them personally, I think it just reinforces the culture and the brand. This is an organization that definitely, they take care of their people here. And I can't say the same for the other organizations, and I'm not being disrespectful. I think that makes a big difference because, so.
And you care about your people, right? It comes across.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. As Kane said, we're just around the hour mark. Appreciate you taking the time. I know you're incredibly busy. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit down and have a chat with us. Anything you want to close with, Kane?
No, I think it's been wonderful having Tony on. I can see why you found so much success. Really passionate. You mentioned community and friendship so many times, and I love that. And I love that that's part of your sort of mantra in the industry. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. And as Joe mentioned, taking the time. It's been really, really nice over the last hour.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm having fun at Remic, and this business is great. I encourage everybody, take a leap of faith when you're ready. Take the leap of faith. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks for tuning in to the $1 Billion Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode.
For more in-depth entrepreneurial insights, follow us on social media, and for more info on the show, go to billiondollarpodcast.com.
See you next time.